Good morning. Good morning. We're here today because a student came to me to share some concerns that he and his friends had about a lot of the things that are going on in the state legislature related to education. He explained that he wanted to do something to make a difference and felt that other students needed to understand the situation with the state budget and how it was impacting schools and students. He expressed concern for his future in education and for the future of his little brothers and sisters. This assembly today is meant to help explain to students the impact of our state budget on education in the state of Kansas and the Topeka Public Schools. Annie McKay is the Executive Director of the Kansas Center for Economic Growth, and she's here to explain the budget impact on the state of Kansas and in education in Kansas.
Wait till I get done. You may not be so excited to clap about this because it's not the best, most uplifting news, but I'm going to try and start broad, and then I'm going to turn to your esteemed leader, Dr. Ford, to talk a little bit about how this directly impacts 501. But in starting broad and looking at the state's budget, what I want to sort of hammer home here is that this dollar bill represents everything that comes into the state general fund. So it comes from individual income tax, the stuff that comes out of our paychecks. It comes from sales tax, the money we collect when you stop by the quick shop for a candy bar, and then it comes from a handful of other sources. And what's really significant about what's happening in Kansas right now is that we passed tax policy in 2012 and 2013 that seeks to eliminate the individual income tax. So that part of the dollar bill there that's brown, individual income tax, for nearly 42, a little over 42%, it's our goal to completely wipe that source out. If I were to sort of put this in the context of working a job, or if you all have a job and you have bills to pay, it's kind of like quitting your full-time job and going to a part-time job, but not adjusting your bills and just hoping it's going to work out. When we passed this tax policy, there wasn't a plan to immediately replace that. The idea was that it would act like an adrenaline shot to the economy and that it would all just work out. And what we know 3 years into passing that tax policy is that it hasn't just all worked out. And that's why we're having these conversations today about budget cuts. When we think about what that dollar bill goes to, so individual income tax and sales tax and the other sources of money, about 50% of it goes to funding K through 12 education. Really important when we think about, we sought to eliminate half of the dollar bill, and half of it goes to K through 12. It also goes to providing health insurance for vulnerable Kansans and low-income folks. That's Medicaid or CanCare. And it goes to higher education in Kansas as well. Human services towards health and education. Half of that funding without it impacting K through 12 or the safety and the health of our communities. When we think about then what's happened to education in Kansas and what's happened to revenues, here's what's interesting. We're an anomaly, we're an outlier. When you look at the states around us, their money, their revenues are going up and they're putting more into education. But what are we doing in Kansas? Our revenues are going down and we're cutting education and other things as a result. This is self-inflicted. We chose this path. This is not because of a great recession. This is not because of something that's happening with the national economy. All of the states around us are doing better, and we're pulling up the rear, and we're having to cut important things as a result of it. What has it meant thus far? So we produced a report this fall called Quality at Risk, looking at that point at what we had done to education. Because I want to be clear, while we're cutting budgets now, we've already cut education's budget coming out of the recession to make ends meet. These budget cuts did not just start this year. It's sort of like a frog in a pot of boiling water. As the temperature is starting to turn up, it's getting a little bit hotter, but you're sitting in there so you don't notice how hot it's getting. But we've been cutting education coming out of the recession while other states are investing. And it's having impacts all across the state, not just in 501. The things that we're having to cut or eliminate are things like extracurricular activities. We've seen districts, about 30% of districts have reduced or eliminated extracurricular activities. And in addition to that, there's fees being implemented all across the state to try and cover the ground that's lost from state budget cuts. Kansas schools have gained about 19,000 more students but yet we have 665 fewer teachers coming out of the recession. We're packing more bodies into a classroom, which is impacting the ability to learn and get things done and achieve in terms of our K through 12 education. And nearly 50% of districts across the state have seen the average class size grow. This all happened prior to this year. And now what we're looking at is even larger budget cuts, even larger holes to fill. When we're talking about the next budget year, which starts on July 1st, it's a little counterintuitive because our budget year straddles the calendar year. So our next budget year starts on July 1st, and we're trying to figure out how do we close a nearly $600 million gap. We've already cut budgets. Do we close it by cutting more budgets? Do we look to make more reductions to K through 12 and higher ed? Or do we look to possibly get some money somewhere? Again, let me be really clear. We're on this path because we chose to be on this path. We cut a significant source of revenue into the state, and as a result, we're scrambling to figure out how do we plug that hole. And it's not just next year, it's every year after this until we address the problem. So with that uplifting news, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ford, who's going to talk a little bit more about the impact specifically on 501.
Oops, what did I do? Test on. Very good. Oops. First of all, we are in a real critical time in Topeka Public Schools, and I'd like to say we have all the answers figured out, but we do know some reality, but that reality today may change. So, let's skip 22. We are in the planning stage right now with the Board of Education looking at our cuts. And what's concerning about this is we are having to cut $1.3 million from this year. Now, how that works is last year, and really it's about in July and August, we prepare our budget for this year. And we've been working on that budget. We hired the number of teachers we needed. We have planned extracurricular activities. Your school has budgets. We planned it in August because that was what was promised to us. However, on March 25th, I believe it was, Governor Brownback signed the budget cuts for the new funds. And it's called a block grant. So we're going to get money for the next 2 years, and it will be $3 million less this next year than we had this year, and then about $600,000 less the following year. However, before we even go into the block grants, we have to cut $1.3 million out of our budget this year. Where you guys are students, you seniors, it's this year. We were promised the money in August, and then it's been cut. What does that mean for Topeka Public Schools? He signed it in late March, and there's around 70 days to July 1st. We have to cut about $23,000 or save and not spend about $23,000 a day. Now that's a lot of money. We have a large budget, it's 1.3 that we're being cut, but we have to save that now between now and July 1st by not spending. And that's why unfortunately we've had to put on some restriction in spending between now and July. We're going to continue to watch the revenue that's coming in. Did many of you see yesterday that it was announced the revenue that just came in for this past month? It's down. So it means the state is not getting the money they need to pay their bills. So as we look forward, we are pretty sure with even the money that is promised to us in the block grants that the state may not have the money to fund it if the money doesn't come into Kansas, which means those dollar amounts could even go up before we would have more cuts, or maybe the block grants would not be funded. There is a court case that is really important to understand, and my understanding in early May, it will come out of the district court, and whatever that decision is, it may or may not go to the Supreme Court. One of the things that concerns us most in Topeka Public Schools is we are 76% free and reduced this year, so we need more money to educate students with more challenges. And we have more ELL kids, we have more special ed kids, we have students that need additional help with social workers, counselors, after-school programming in order to be successful. What has happened is the equity has gone away. And really, some of the wealthier districts are actually getting additional dollars next year. I might tell you, you may hear that they've given us more money. And really what they gave it to was CAPERS, which is our retirement plan for past and current teachers and classified staff. That money cannot be used for you in education. We can't buy buses money this year. We can't buy football teams with that money. So the additional money is covering our retirement account. And that's a concern. We want that to be covered too, but the bottom dollar is we need money for the students that we have right now and in the years to come. I have one-year-old grandsons. What is it going to look like if they keep cutting schools from now on till they get in schools? If you have little brothers and sisters, how is it going to look in the future? So the court case may or may not help us, but we're watching that. The truth of the money is Kansas doesn't have money to fund it, even if the court finds in favor of the school. The money is just not there. We're waiting for the session to end. Your legislators right now are on break, and they will come back now, and they'll make a lot of hard decisions, and that's when we'll know when our actual dollar is. We are going to get a lot of community input. We'll have community meetings and ask for how are we going to cut programs in Topeka Public Schools? What do we no longer want to do? And then we'll have a budget prepared next year during the summer, and it would actually be published in August. So that's where we're at right now, and it is looking a little bleak. And one of my slides didn't get there. I do want to talk about Julio asked for, and some of the other student council members asked for this. I didn't come and say, let's talk to the kids about budgets, and Mr. Dick didn't do that either. This is student-driven. They wanted to know where Topeka Public Schools is. This is not the first student group that has gotten involved. There was a group that walked to the Capitol this last week from Kansas City to make a point. And this includes some students, but a lot of parents and things are starting to get involved. And then there was a group of rural students, and truthfully, rural students are going to be in worse shape than some of the urban districts. So they organized, and they came and spent some time at the Capitol talking to their legislators. So this isn't anything new that students are saying, what do we need to know about this? So at this time, we want to turn it over to Julio to kind of address you.
Bear with me, I'm really hoping my dyslexia isn't acting up today. First of all, like how we said before, this is definitely student driven, we wanted to do this to better our schools, to better further schools in Kansas as well. I definitely wanted to make that decision clear. Decisions are being made that directly affect our future, the future of our brothers and sisters, and the future of Topeka students and families. Like how she said before, people have to walk 60 miles from Kansas City to Topeka in support of education. And this is their third year running and doing this. And we just have a short drive to make till we get to the Capitol. And also, the legislative has stopped working today, even though that we still haven't solved the problem with funding our school. I know I have talked to some of you about the problems and our concerns that are going to be happening in the state and how it's going to be affecting us. We see it in the news every day, but no one seems to truly be listening. This is why we have scheduled this assembly, so we can be heard. This is a time for us to speak up like other students have in other cities and towns. And again, how she said, in Buckland High School, they traveled 270 miles to stand up for their own school. Kansas leaders need to hear us. We want jobs. We need jobs. We need college and opportunities when we graduate. We want Topeka to grow and become better. Do any of you want to own a business or get the job career that you've always wanted to? It's up to us to make this difference, and we can't let ourselves be ignored anymore. We are the leaders. We are the employees and owners of future Topeka businesses and employment. You can vote with your voice, and by stepping up and letting people know that we care about our future and the future of generations to come. And I'd like to also thank Mr. D for helping us with this assembly as well. Thank you. And this is our state. This is our city. These are our people. This is our family. This is our community. Whatever you want to call it, we are together. And we all want a bright future. And if only within this small span that these bills and bonds are being placed, think of what school is going to be like for future generations. I don't want my younger siblings to not have an opportunity to get further education if that means that they're going to lose their dream career or dream job. I want to help them. I want to help future generations. This isn't just for us. It is for future generations to come. And I'm glad that the media is also here today so that people can see and people can know if they want to get involved that they can, that they do have a voice and that they can be heard. They just need to speak up. And not just students either. I also want to reach out to businesses, and I want them to have some sort of voice in this as well, because they are still part of our community. They make up a lot of our community still, through food, especially, electric, water, everything. They help us balance out our community. They help us thrive in our community. And we will have an email here pretty soon, or if not, many of you use email. We are going to be creating a Twitter and also Facebook entitled SLA, or the Topeka Public Schools Student Legislative Action Council, but that's a bit of a mouthful. So I'd like to say again, thank you to Mr. D, Dr. Ford, and Annie for coming out here to speaking with us. And I please would like all of you to share this and gain support, because this is our state, this is our city, and we need to be heard. Thank you.
Ms. McKay for coming and speaking to us today. And thank all of you for your attention. We appreciate your good attention to this whole assembly. And thank Julio for doing what he's done.